My brother blamed me for his failed proposal. He's really trying to make it anyone's fault but his.
Yeah.
I ruined Christmas Eve dinner by showing up high on mushrooms. Yep, probably.
I don't know. Sounds kind of fun.
Well, I don't know. For dinner? Welcome back to Delve Deck Stories. Today we have some holiday drama stories. Our first one comes from Josh, and it's "What's your not my proudest moment" story from our venting deck. My estranged dad showed up to my company holiday party and tried to start a fight. That's no good. My dad left when I was 13, and before that, he wasn't a great guy, so I wasn't sorry to see him go. He drank a lot, had a nasty temper, and wasn't much of a parent. Once he was gone, I didn't hear from him again and expected I never would. I grew up, went to college, got married, and started a successful business with my wife. Every year, we throw a holiday party for our staff and their significant others. We have a team of 25 people, and with guests, it's usually a decent-sized party, so we rent a space at a local venue like a restaurant or a hotel that can host us. Last year was our company's 10-year anniversary, and we threw a bigger than usual party, even inviting a bunch of our long-standing clients. I was at the party chatting with some staff members when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and there was my dad.
I wonder if this is one of those things where, like, there's an announcement made somewhere, you know, and then they find out, like, in the paper.
That's crazy.
I just can't imagine how they would know.
Why is he trying to find you?
Yeah.
I recognized him right away, even though it had been over 20 years.
This feels weird.
Yeah. I felt a rush of rage and shock at not just seeing him, but him having the temerity to show up at my company holiday party. What did he think would happen? I'm so confused.
I'm hoping that they explain how he found his way there.
Yeah.
That's the biggest question of, like, okay, 20 years, like, either he sees in the paper, somebody explicitly reaches out to him. He's like, you should know about your son or something. I don't, like, feels like there's a bit of a force from the outside pushing him in.
I stood there for a second trying to think of what to even say, but he said, "I know it's been a while, son, but I've missed you." Oh, I'm sorry. You don't get to do that 20 years. You don't get to show up somewhere. Like, send an email, Facebook message. There's other ways to, like, be like, hey, I miss you and I want to be in your life.
Facebook message would be a wild one.
I don't know. I feel like that's how people can find each other. Because if you don't know someone's email, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's
easier to find them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He could also be coming for money.
Definitely.
10 years, successful.
That's a good point.
Help me out. I need the money.
I'm usually really good about not losing my temper, but I could feel the anger just welling up inside of me, and I wanted to explode on him. I stood silently, trying to control my desire to punch him, spit on him, scream at him. I wanted to let him have it for all the years of his drinking, violence, and endless list of failures as a parent, but I also didn't want to embarrass myself at my own party and in front of your employees.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
You don't need employees having that leverage over you. Be like, oh, remember that one time you lost your temper?
Yeah. Do you not remember me? I'm your dad, he continued on. It's like...
Bro, I know.
I feel like I'd be like, nope, I have no idea who you are. Bye. What are you doing here? I finally managed to spit out. He said, I called your office earlier and they said you were out getting things together for a company holiday party. So I thought I would come and see what you've made of yourself. This is quite a spread. You must be doing well for yourself. I think you might be on to something with the money.
Whenever a family member comes out of the woodwork, you know, after years, you know, it's because they find out that the person, you know, they like got recruited or drafted on some team and now they're making a lot of money, or they are some high exec and they've got money. I just feel like it's financially motivated.
Yeah. I want you to leave, I said back as calmly as I could manage. What? You don't have enough food to share? You're going to throw your old man out of your fancy party? He started getting testy, like he was looking for a fight. People were starting to stare at us. I just wanted him gone, and I didn't want to lose my own temper. This is a private event, David, I said back, refusing to call him dad. If you do not leave, I will be forced to call the police. That's going things. You can't do that, he said. You don't throw out family. Bro. You lost that privilege.
Yeah.
You lost it. What? I looked over at my office manager, who was next to me, and had heard the entire thing. Please call the police, I told her. She called, but my father continued his tantrum while she was on the phone. You think you're high and mighty now that you're a big shot? I used to change your diapers. You ain't nothing, he started yelling. I was so embarrassed. He was doing this in front of my entire staff and some of my clients. Everyone was staring at him now. I feel like, what did you expect? You're just, I don't know. Yeah. This is so weird. I mean, he's obviously like unwell.
Yeah. Also just sounds like a real piece of shit.
Yeah, no, he sucks.
Yeah.
For sure. David, the police will be here any minute. If you don't want to be arrested, you're going to need to leave, I said back. He lunged at me, and a couple guys from my sales team each grabbed an arm to hold him back. A group of guys from my office walked him out of the party and onto the street where the police were rounding the corner. Very dramatic, but also, like, it's not your fault. Hopefully people don't hold that against you.
Yeah.
They arrested my dad, but the rest of the night was totally ruined for me. I was so pissed. I never wanted that chaos from my childhood seeping into my much calmer adult life, but he'd found a way to get in there and make a scene. This year, we have private security at the holiday party. He won't be coming for an encore. I mean, obviously this dude sucks, so obviously he's not gonna, like...
I still want to know how he found him.
Yeah.
Like, what was the motivation that got him to show up?
I don't know. But I think you're right.
Give me some dough, you know?
Right. Let us know in the comments what you think Dad was there for. Our next story is from Rick, and it's what's your not my proudest moment story from our venting deck. I ruined Christmas Eve dinner by showing up high on mushrooms. Yep, probably.
I don't know, sounds kind of fun.
Do that. Well, I don't know. For dinner? I was a freshman in college and home for winter break. I spent the day of Christmas Eve hanging out with friends from high school who I hadn't seen since the summer, really. We started off just drinking beers and smoking some bud, but then one of my friends was like, who wants to do shrooms? I had never done it and was curious to try it, so I took some along with my friends. That makes the most sense. I feel like if you'd done mushrooms before, you would be like, probably not before Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for how stoned I was going to get and ended up totally losing touch with reality. I couldn't keep track of where I was or who I was talking to. At one point, my mom called and told me I better be home by 5:30 for dinner with the family. Christmas Eve dinner is kind of a big thing at my house. My grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins all come over, and we have a formal sit-down dinner and then exchange some gifts.
Sounds like it's gonna be a fun dinner.
Yeah. I thought I could just go home and keep quiet and maybe no one would notice my condition, but that was a huge mistake. Yes, it was.
When your eyes are saucers,
yeah.
You're like, yeah,
seems
okay.
a little off.
Yeah.
My friends dropped me off at the house, but for some reason, I thought my friends who I'd been hanging out with in the car were my family. So when I got to dinner, I was totally confused as to how my family had just been in the car with me and were now at the table. After saying grace, I interrupted with, I'm sorry, but who are you people? Oh no.
That's the perfect response.
Well,
you know,
it's
those inner feelings coming out.
You know that your friends are your chosen family, and you're like, I don't even relate to you people anymore. My family looked at me like I was crazy, and then I said, wait, you're not my mom. I just saw my mom in the car before I got here. My mom looked at me with serious concern and goes, are you feeling okay? Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, I got a fever, gotta go.
I'm sick. No, I think I'm still high on the mushrooms, I blurted out.
Now I didn't know mushrooms were truth serum.
Yeah.
He's like, I already lost.
Yeah,
Hi guys, I am high on psilocybin right now.
My sister started to chuckle, but my dad goes, you're high on mushrooms? And his tone immediately shut my sister up. I just stared at the table, but the cat was out of the bag. My mother snapped, just go up to your room, Richard. We'll talk about this later. I went up to my room and proceeded to call my girlfriend, but she was at her family's house and not answering. Like an idiot, I kept calling her and leaving her incoherent voicemails. The next day, she yelled at me for leaving her 37 insane messages. I would not have listened to those.
Yeah.
That would be like, if I got those.
I might listen to the first few to be like, what is going on? And then after that, I'd be like, oh, this is just more of this.
Yeah. I would be like, I don't know if I'd be mad, but I would be like, you're
annoyed?
a dumb
Yeah. It's like, oh, what is she doing? Oh, she's spending time with her family? Oh, that's so lame.
Yeah. I basically managed to ruin everyone's night, and my parents were still pretty unhappy with me the next day for my poor judgment and embarrassing them in front of the whole family. I got a long lecture from my dad about the dangers of drugs and threatened my tuition for school being diverted to rehab if I ever tried a stunt like that again. You don't need to go to rehab
No,
for mushrooms.
shrooms and weed, no.
I know he's just like trying to do a scared straight thing, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand as a parent. Like, I would be like,
Yeah.
you dumb like, don't do that.
But also it'd be like, I'm going to divert funds from tuition to rehab. It's like, whoa, slow down there. We're not.
Also, that's a fancy rehab. If you're gonna have full
that's
college
the Malibu,
fund,
that's the Malibu one.
that's
you know?
a nice rehab.
That's where you go when you see the celebrities and you sign the
Maybe,
NDA and they're like, you can't say that you saw this person at this facility kind of thing.
Take him up on the offer. Our next story is from Brandon, and it is, what's the worst gift you've ever received from our venting deck? My mom gave my wife and me a nursery set, even though we don't want to have kids.
Not so subtle.
Yeah. My wife and I got married in May 2023, and my mom wasted no time asking us when we were going to have kids. Now, I had a vasectomy 4 years ago, but never told my mom because it's none of her business. Despite telling her that we didn't want kids for years, she insisted that we would change our minds once we were married. My wife and I bought a house a few months after our wedding and decided to host Christmas dinner that year. My wife's family lives in a different state, so it was just going to be my parents and my brother, his wife, and their 3 kids. You'd think 3 grandkids would be enough to satisfy my mother, but she apparently needed more from me. Anyway, dinner went smoothly and everyone was having a great time. My mom made a few comments asking if we had any big announcements to make, which my wife and I both dodged. Then it was time for gifts. Since Christmas is mainly about the kids, my niece and nephews had a giant pile of toys from everyone, and the adults exchanged small gifts, as we usually do. Then my mom started getting weird and was like, I think Santa may have left one more gift outside. Can someone help me bring it in? Okay, Mom.
No, don't do this.
My brother was like, Mom, no, the kids don't need any more toys. Santa said it wasn't for your kids. She winked at my wife and me. I had a bad feeling and asked her, what did you get, Mom? Instead of answering, she asked my dad if he'd help her bring in Santa's gift. He doesn't even know.
Yeah.
He's like, I wasn't participating in this.
He's like, your mom asked me when I said, don't do it. And clearly she did it.
They both left. My brother was like, well, this should be interesting. My mom can be a little over the top, so we could only guess what she was about to come inside with. The door opened, and my parents were pulling in a massive wrapped gift. My brother and sister-in-law looked horrified, still not convinced she wasn't about to give their kids something huge for them to deal with. Then my mom said, Santa addressed this to both of you, smiling at my wife and me. The kids were, of course, so excited that Santa had brought us a gift and wanted us to open it right away. My wife and I ripped off the wrapping paper together, revealing a full nursery set.
Mom, can you still return this?
My wife looked at me horrified. First of all, we didn't need a nursery set since we were never having kids. Second, with a crib, changing table, and a dresser included, the gift had to have been really expensive. My brother started laughing, but I was horrified. What the hell, Mom? I asked her. Looks like Santa knows something the rest of us don't, she said. That's weird.
Does he know?
I would be like kind of pissed off if I was the wife. I'd be like, what are you insinuating? Do I look pregnant?
I just can't stand when family force it on someone. It's like, if they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it on their own timeline. But when people are like, okay, here's this not so subtle hint, and you're like, you're only making this worse for that person to be like, do I even want to have kids now?
Not gonna have them out of spite. My wife was like, but I'm not pregnant. My mom responded, maybe not yet, but you must be trying. This house is so big. Santa knows you'll want to fill it with babies soon. Not wanting to be like, Mom, shut up. We both know Santa isn't real in front of the kids. I asked her to talk to me in the kitchen. Mom, I've already told you we aren't going to have kids. You need to return that, I told her. Don't be ridiculous. When you change your mind, you'll be happy you already have those things. We aren't going to change our minds. You will, she insisted. We kept going back and forth, and I became more and more frustrated that she wasn't listening to me. Finally, I was like, Okay, let's drop the bomb. I had a vasectomy 4 years ago. We are never having children. You need to accept this and return the gift. My mom first looked horrified, then furious, then started crying. How could you do this to me? She said, which is exactly why I never wanted to tell her.
How could you do this to me? It's like, what are you talking about? This isn't about you.
It has nothing to do with you.
If I have children, then you will benefit from that if I want to have children. But I'm not going to have children because you say that it's like you try to guilt me into it.
Right. I still have to take care of those kids every day.
Are you going to pay for this?
This is the insane thing. I'm like, but I have to have them every day and I don't want that.
Well, that's the thing is like when people are like, they have a kid and then they're like still on that high and like, let's have another kid. And you forget the raising of the child or the training of the pet or whatever it is. And so you're still like, oh, it wasn't so bad, was it? And you're like, do you remember when you were depressed or couldn't go to work or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
All these things like, yeah, maybe now, 2020 hindsight, you're like, was it so great?
I tried to explain to her that our decision to not have kids had nothing to do with her, but she would hear none of it. She also kept telling me that she couldn't return the gift because she bought it on sale.
Oh, wow. So they're not even full price. They're clearance.
I was like, that's not my problem. Why the hell would you do that? My mom and I fought some more, and then she said she was leaving. I was like, yeah, that's probably for the best. My wife and I ended up selling the nursery set online and gave the money to my parents. My mom still hasn't accepted that we aren't going to have kids and has now started telling me that vasectomies are reversible when we decide we're ready. Mom, calm down.
Also, I would not have given the money back. Taking the money.
You're like, thank you.
I was like,
for this
boom,
gift.
This is for our holiday travel.
Yeah. We have told my dad that under no circumstances can they give us baby things this year. And I'm hoping he stops my mom from doing something like that ever again. I can handle her comments, but that gift was way too much. Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like grandma sucks.
She needs to calm down, and it's not about you.
Yeah.
Our next story is from Taylor. It's what have you tried once that you never want to try again from the original deck. We tried doing an outdoor Thanksgiving and fire ants destroyed it. We were really poor when I was a kid. I was raised by a single mom and had several periods of living out of a van. One year for Thanksgiving, my mom told me, age 10, and my brother, age 6, that it would be fun to do a Thanksgiving picnic. Really, we just didn't have anywhere to go, but she tried to sell us on the idea of it being like the first Thanksgiving that the Pilgrims had.
Historically, it wasn't that great.
We got some pre-made food from the supermarket, and mom set up a picnic for the three of us at a picnic table in the park. I was over the idea as soon as we got out of the van. It was too cold outside. The wind was blowing everything over, and I was sent to scrounge for rocks to weigh stuff down. As soon as my mom declared that she was done with setting up, I noticed fire ants crawling all over everything. My mom was like, "It's not that bad, just eat around them."
I'm not going to.
Actually, I refuse.
Yeah. Thanks, but no thanks.
But I wasn't having it. I didn't even want to sit at the table because I knew it was a matter of time before we started getting ant bites. As I was having this thought, my brother started crying because he was getting ant bites. Once my brother started crying, my mom was like, okay, maybe this wasn't the best idea. I understand that she was trying to do a nice thing.
Yeah.
I understand that it was a nice thing, but
it was a terrible idea.
Sucks. Yeah. I helped her quickly dispose of all the ruined food while my brother cried about the ant bites and being hungry. We ended up settling for a meal of convenience store snacks, which you'd think would be super disappointing, but I was just happy to be away from the ants and the freezing cold park. When my mom asked us what we were thankful for while huddled in the back of our van with our feast of Doritos, Slim Jims, pretzels, and candy bars, I said I was thankful for not freezing my butt off while being mauled by ants. She rolled her eyes at my reply, but my brother was like, I'm copying Taylor's answer.
Majority wins 2-1.
This is why Boston Market exists.
Wow, Boston Market. That's a throwback. I haven't been to a Boston Market. Well, there was that Boston Market in SF.
I've only been to Boston Market once in my life, and I was like, I don't like Thanksgiving food enough to ever want to come here again.
I would only get the chicken and the cinnamon apple slices that were in like the sauce. That's all I got as a kid. But yeah, Boston Market was huge in the Midwest.
Yeah. Our final story comes from Crystal, and it is what is your no good deed goes unpunished story from our venting deck. My brother blamed me for his failed proposal. Okay. A few years ago, my younger brother Cameron started dating this woman, Gina. She was really sweet and they seemed to get along great. After dating her for 6 months, my brother asked me if I would help him with something important. He wanted to know if I would help him pick out an engagement ring for her. I was surprised by this because he was 26 at the time and they had not been dating for very long. I raised these concerns, but he assured me they had discussed it and that she was the one. He didn't want to wait any longer. That's how much he loved her. 6 months is not a very long time. I set my reservations aside because I've always had a soft spot for my brother and he seemed so happy and in love. A week later, I met up with him at a jewelry store. So, which ring should I buy? He asked me. I was like, has she told you what kind of ring she wants? He said no, and that she had told him she wanted it to be a surprise. Now, I'm not saying my brother has bad taste, but I wouldn't trust him to buy jewelry. So this surprised me and I was thankful he had enlisted my help.
I'm not saying he has bad taste, but he has bad taste.
But he has bad taste. If you have to wear something for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
theoretically, I would want to pick it out myself.
I mean, I did a consult.
Yeah.
I brought a couple friends in, family, and I was like, boom, boom, what, I knew what
You didn't
I knew
just
what she
ask
wanted.
her directly?
No, I'm not gonna be like, what kind of ring do you want?
That's what I would want. I'd be like, I'm picking it out.
I knew the
I'm
metal,
there.
I knew the stone, I knew the relative design and the designer. So I already had the pieces in place
From her, from her friends.
from her.
Okay.
And then I had the friends and, sister and brother-in-law involved during the here are the things I'm looking at option-wise.
Okay. We ended up picking out a simple princess cut ring with a gold band that I thought would suit her well. My brother paid for the ring and told me he was planning on proposing on Christmas Eve at our family's party. On Christmas Eve, Cameron told me he wrapped the ring and put it under the tree for Gina to open. Being a bit of a hopeless romantic myself, I was like, that's so sweet. Christmas Eve is a pretty big deal at our house. My parents host this really big party for both extended families and some of our neighbors who would otherwise be spending the holidays alone. Gina arrived that afternoon and seamlessly blended in with everyone. I remember thinking, I'm so happy she's going to be my sister-in-law. After dinner, everyone gathered in the living room to do gifts. When we got to Gina, she opened her gift from my parents and then started to open the smaller box from my brother. My heart was racing. Her eyes widened when she saw the small box. As she opened it, my brother got on his knee in front of her and pulled out a piece of paper with a speech on it. As he was professing his love for her, Gina started crying. At first, I was like, aw, that's so sweet. But then as it continued, I started getting the feeling that they were not happy tears. Oh no. That's sad.
Also, in front of your family and extended family on the holiday, this is about to be a real big downer on the party.
My brother finished his speech and Gina quietly was like, can we talk outside? Ugh.
If it's anything but a yes,
Oh no.
can we talk?
Cameron seemed confused but agreed and followed her out of the house. Everyone just sat in awkward silence for a moment until my dad was like, whose turn is it to open gifts? We tried to pretend everything was fine, but as time passed, I started getting worried. Finally, my brother returned without Gina. It was obvious he had been crying. My mom went to hug him and kept saying, it's going to be okay. I'm sorry that happened. Cameron started crying for real as my mom hugged him. Then he pulled away and yelled, this is all Crystal's fault. What? Everyone turned to look at me and I was like, what do you mean, Cam? You picked out an ugly ring. She hated it. He yelled back.
Did she break up with him because of the ring, or did she break up with him because it's too fast?
I think, I assume we're going to find out. I feel like if you break up with someone because the ring is ugly, that's pretty messed
Yeah,
up.
you could have been like, okay, we'll find out. But it's that was the ring. It's okay, say yes to the relationship, and then you get the ring exchanged or replaced or whatever later on.
Yeah. I felt so guilty. I'm so sorry, Cameron. You told me she didn't care. I'm sorry. I honestly believed him that it was my fault. Cameron then broke down and started crying that his life was over and I ruined everything before going upstairs. Once again, everyone sat in awkward silence, broken by one of my aunts asking if anyone wanted more wine. Yes, please. Then there was a knock at the door. Everyone's like, let's get some wine.
Yeah.
Enjoy the show.
Let's
I don't know.
drink these memories away.
Then there was a knock at the door. My dad jumped at the opportunity to do something and answered the door. Standing there was Gina, who also looked like she'd been crying. Gina! My dad didn't seem to know what to say. Sorry, I just realized I left my purse here. I need to get my keys. I'm sorry, she said. My dad was like, oh, right, I'll go get it. Oh. I assumed he wanted to get her out of there before Cameron found out, but it was too late. Cameron had heard the knock and was back in the living room. He threw himself at her feet and started crying about how she had to take him back. Gina seemed so uncomfortable and kept saying, please, Cameron, could we just talk about this later? I can get you a new ring. I'm sorry. Crystal picked it out. I shouldn't have trusted her. Please forgive me. Cameron cried even harder. I was ready to insert myself and tell Gina I was sorry too, and to not blame my brother for my terrible taste. She's like, it runs in the family.
Yeah. This is also an example for her to be like, Gina's like, and this is why I don't want to marry you.
Yeah.
You are a child who cannot control your emotions. Everyone can see this.
Yeah, you're 26.
Yeah.
But then she was like, I already told you it's not about the ring. She looked at me. I swear it's not about the ring. You picked a beautiful ring. I just sort of nodded like, oh, okay, thank you. Then she was like, we've only been together 6 months, Cameron. But you said you wanted to get married, he cried back. Yeah, in the future. Not right now. I'm only 24. Gina was crying now too. This is just unfortunate for everyone. It's really awkward for them. It's really awkward for everyone at this party.
Super awkward for me to listen.
Like, I hate this.
Honestly, I was like, oh, God, I would be the person going around and be like, all right, who wants shots?
Who
like,
just wants
is there
to
food
drink?
somewhere?
Yeah.
Are there video games here?
Cameron either couldn't or wouldn't listen to her. He kept saying they were perfect together and she had to marry him. The whole situation was so awkward, and Gina was finally just like, I need to go. I'm sorry for ruining your party. And she left. I don't think that you should propose in front of a group of people.
No.
I think that that's a recipe for disaster.
Even if you think you know, like, oh, she's going to say yes, or he's going to say yes, or whatever it is, I would not.
I would not.
It's a
Unless
private moment.
This is why they should also pick out their own ring, because, then they're going to say yes.
Private moment. After you do that, then go celebrate, go to the bar, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how it should be.
My brother once again turned on me and was like, why did you pick such an ugly ring? He's really trying to make it anyone's fault but his.
Yeah.
I tried to calmly say, Cameron, that's not what happened. Yes, it is. You picked a bad ring. He was crying hysterically now. I then realized there was nothing I could say to help him, so I was just like, okay, I'm sorry. My parents pulled him aside to console him, and he refused to speak to me for the rest of the night. The next morning, he left early instead of opening gifts with the family. I felt horrible, but my parents assured me that it wasn't my fault at all, and he just needed some time to process what happened.
Yeah, it's not her fault at all.
No.
Yeah. If he was more mature, he would have thought this through.
Yes.
And waited longer than 6 months.
Done it in private.
At least 7 months.
Yeah. Since then, he has apologized and admitted that he overreacted. I know he was just looking for someone to blame because he was heartbroken, but it's still one of the worst Christmases we've ever had.
I don't know. Some might say the worst, and others who were there to watch might be like, this is shit I want to watch.
The next year they were at the party and they're like, all right, who's gonna put on a show this time?
They're like, it's like I'm watching reality TV in real life.
Let us know in the comments, which holiday would you want to attend? Which story would you want to be in the most and the least? That is it for Delve Deck Stories. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, you can like, subscribe, and check out some of our other videos. And if you would like to share one of your stories with us, you can go to share.delvedeck.com and we might read it on an episode.